The step that changed everything. They say the longest journey begins with a single step. I'd heard that phrase 1,000 times, in 1,000 different contexts. Motivational posters, self-help books, inspirational speeches that I'd always dismissed as meaningless platitudes. But I'd never understood what it really meant. Not until the day I took that step. The day I decided to become myself. It wasn't a dramatic moment, not really. There was no thunderclap, no dramatic music swelling in the background. I was just sitting in my cramped studio apartment, staring at the same sketchbook I'd been drawing in since I was 14. The pages were worn and tattered, held together by tape and years of hope. She stared back at me from every page. The woman I'd always dreamed of being. The woman I was too afraid to become. I'd been hiding for so long. 25 years of pretending to be someone I wasn't. 25 years of smiling and nodding and saying, "I'm fine," when everything inside me was screaming. 25 years of watching the world pass me by while I stood frozen in place. And I was so tired. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I can't keep pretending. I can't keep hiding. I can't keep being someone I'm not." I looked at my reflection in the window, the face that had never felt like mine. Strong jaw, broad shoulders, dark hair that fell across my brow. A face that was handsome, maybe, but completely wrong. "I'm sorry," I said to the stranger in the glass. "I'm sorry I kept you hidden for so long. I'm sorry I was too scared to let you out. But I'm not sorry anymore. I'm not scared anymore." I picked up my sketchbook and held it to my chest. The cover was soft and worn, like an old friend. I'd spent so many hours with this book, pouring my heart into its pages. It had been my lifeline, my salvation, my only connection to the person I was meant to be. But it wasn't enough anymore. I needed more than drawings. I needed to live. "Tomorrow," I said, my voice firm. "Tomorrow, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take that step." I didn't know what that step would be. I didn't know where it would lead. All I knew was that I couldn't stay where I was. I couldn't keep living in the shadows, afraid of my own truth. Tomorrow, I would take a step into the light. But I never got the chance to take that step. When I opened my eyes the next morning, everything had changed. The ceiling above me was not the water-stained plaster of my apartment, but an expanse of ivory painted with celestial patterns that seemed to shift in the soft light. The bed beneath me was impossibly comfortable, the sheets smooth as water against my skin. The air smelled of roses and something sweet, something I couldn't quite name. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. The room was beautiful, more beautiful than anything I'd ever seen. It was decorated in shades of pink and cream, with delicate furniture that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. A vanity stood against one wall, its mirror framed in gold and silver. I crawled out of bed and walked toward the vanity, my legs trembling beneath me. The floor was cold and smooth under my bare feet. And then I saw my reflection. I gasped, stumbling backward. The woman in the mirror was beautiful. She had long, flowing hair the color of honey gold. She had eyes the color of warm amber, soft and knowing. She had a smile that was gentle and sad, like she understood everything I'd ever felt. She was the woman I'd drawn 1,000 times. The woman I'd dreamed of becoming. She was me. I touched my face, and the reflection did the same. My fingers traced the curve of my cheek, the line of my jaw, the soft fullness of my lips. The skin was smooth and warm, alive in a way that no drawing could ever capture. I was real. I was here. I was her. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. The first few days were a blur of adjustment and discovery. I learned that I was Princess Aurora of Valdres, the youngest daughter of King Aldrich and Queen Eleanor. I learned that I had a sister named Cordelia, who was fierce and loyal and utterly devoted to me. I learned that I lived in a castle made of rose-colored stone, surrounded by gardens that stretched as far as the eye could see. But most importantly, I learned that I wasn't alone. "Your Highness." The voice came from the doorway, soft and hesitant. I looked up and saw a young woman in a simple gray dress, her brown hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was watching me with concern, her hands clasped before her. Yes, I said, my voice still strange in my ears. It was high and soft, the voice of the woman I'd always imagined being. I'm Alara, the woman said. Your personal maid. I've been assigned to help you adjust to your new life. I stared at her, my mind spinning. My new life. She smiled gently. The physician said you might be confused after your collapse. He said to give you time, to be patient. I nodded slowly, not knowing what else to do. Thank you, Alara. I appreciate that. She bobbed a curtsy and began moving around the room, tidying things that didn't need tidying. I watched her, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. This was real. This was happening. I was Princess Aurora. I was the woman I'd always dreamed of being. But I wasn't just Princess Aurora. I was someone else too. Someone who'd spent her whole life hiding in the shadows. And I was still trying to figure out who that person was. Are you all right? Cordelia asked one afternoon. We were in my sitting room, sipping tea, and watching the afternoon sun stream through the windows. You've been quiet lately. More than usual. I smiled, a genuine smile that felt strange on my face. I'm fine. I think I just needed to rest. To adjust. Adjust to what? She tilted her head, her amber eyes searching mine. You've been different since the collapse. Like you're seeing everything for the first time. I hesitated. How could I explain the truth? How could I tell her that I was a stranger in this body, in this life? That I'd drawn her world with my own hands, and now I was living in it? Maybe I am seeing everything for the first time, I said finally. Maybe I just needed to wake up. Cordelia studied me for a long moment. Then slowly she smiled. Well, whatever happened, I'm glad. You seem happier, Aurora. More yourself. I nodded, blinking back tears. She was right. I was happier. More myself. Because for the first time in my life, I was finally myself. The first time I met Prince Kale, I thought I was dreaming. He appeared in the dining hall like a vision from one of my sketches, tall and dark-haired, with eyes the color of a stormy sea. He was handsome in a way that made my heart stutter, with a strong jaw and a smile that seemed to promise secrets. But it wasn't his looks that caught my attention. It was the way he looked at me, like he saw me, the real me, the woman I'd always been hiding. Aurora. His voice was warm, almost intimate, as he rose from his seat. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I should have said something clever. I should have been the poised, confident princess I'd always imagined being. Instead, I stood there like a statue, my mind reeling. Your Highness, I managed, dropping into a curtsy that felt clumsy and awkward. The pleasure is mine. His lips curved into a smile, and I felt my cheeks flush. What was happening to me? I'd never reacted this way to anyone in my other life. I'd been too scared, too hidden, too consumed by my own fear to entertain real connections. But this man, this stranger who looked at me like I was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen, was making my heart race in ways I'd never experienced. Would you care to take a walk in the gardens? He asked later that evening, his voice low enough that only I could hear. The night is lovely, and I find myself in need of fresh air. I should have said no. I should have made an excuse and retreated to my chambers. But something in his eyes made me pause. Something that looked like understanding, like acceptance. I would like that, I heard myself say. The gardens were beautiful in the moonlight. Silver light filtered through the leaves, casting patterns on the gravel paths. The air was cool and sweet, heavy with the scent of roses and night-blooming jasmine. Kale offered me his arm, and I took it, feeling the warmth of him through the silk of his sleeve. We walked in silence for a few moments, the only sounds the crunch of gravel under our feet and the distant chirp of crickets. You're not what I expected, he said finally. I looked up at him, my heart racing. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more guarded. The princess I'd heard about was always so composed, so perfectly controlled. But you seem different. Like there's something beneath the surface that you're hiding. I stopped walking, pulling away from him. I don't know what you mean. Don't you? He turned to face me, his eyes searching mine. I've been watching you all evening. You smile at the right moments, say the right things. But your eyes, they're somewhere else. Like you're not really here. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. He was right. I wasn't here. Not really. I was still trying to make sense of this world, still trying to understand how I'd gotten here and why. Can I tell you something? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Something I've never told anyone? Cale nodded, his eyes soft and encouraging. Of course. You can tell me anything. I took a deep breath. I wasn't always a princess. I wasn't always her. I gestured vaguely at myself. I was someone else. Someone who was trapped. Who couldn't be who they really were. Cale didn't look confused or skeptical. He just nodded, his eyes never leaving mine. Go on. The woman I am now. This is who I've always been. Inside. I just couldn't show it. The world wasn't ready. My family wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I laughed, a sound that was half-sob. I spent my whole life pretending to be someone I wasn't. And now I'm finally free. Cale was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and took my hands. I don't fully understand, he admitted. But I can see that this is important. That it's part of who you are. And I want you to know I don't care about who you used to be. I care about who you are now. The woman standing in front of me. I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. You don't think it's strange? You don't think I'm strange? He laughed softly. Aurora, I've spent my whole life feeling like I was pretending too. Like I was playing a role that didn't quite fit. So no, I don't think you're strange. I think you're brave. Braver than anyone I've ever known. I didn't know what to say. So I kissed him. The kiss was soft and sweet, like the first bloom of spring. It tasted of hope and promise and everything I'd never dared to dream of. When we pulled apart, he was smiling. I love you, he said simply. The real you. The woman you've always been. And in that moment, I believed him. My new family was complicated. King Aldrich, my father, was a stern man with kind eyes and a heavy burden. He loved his daughters, I could see that. But he struggled to show it, buried as he was under the weight of ruling a kingdom. Queen Eleanor, my mother, was the warm heart of the family. She smiled easily and laughed often, and her embrace felt like coming home. She didn't understand everything about me. How could she, when I didn't fully understand myself? But she loved me, and that was enough. And then there was Cordelia. My sister was everything I'd ever wanted in a sibling. She was fierce and loyal, with a sharp wit and a softer heart. She saw through my pretenses, challenged my fears, and loved me anyway. You're different, she said one evening, as we sat in my sitting room. I've noticed it. The way you move, the way you speak. It's like you're finally comfortable in your own skin. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. I am. For the first time in my life, I'm comfortable in my own skin. She studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took my hand. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy, Aurora. You deserve to be yourself. I nodded, blinking back tears. Thank you, Cordelia. That means more than you know. She squeezed my hand. You don't have to thank me. You're my sister. I'll always be here for you. I didn't know how to respond. So I just held her hand and let myself feel the love that surrounded me. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of discovery and transformation. I spent my mornings in the library, devouring books about the kingdom's history and politics. I spent my afternoons in the gardens, learning the names of every flower. I spent my evenings with Cordelia, sipping tea and talking about everything and nothing. And I spent my nights staring at myself in the mirror. I know it sounds vain, but I couldn't help it. Every time I caught my reflection, I was struck anew by how different I looked. This version of me was everything I'd ever wanted to be. Beautiful, elegant, feminine. The body I'd always dreamed of having was finally mine. But it wasn't just my appearance that had changed. It was something deeper, something I couldn't quite put into words. I felt whole, complete, like I'd finally found the missing piece of myself. I'm not the same person I used to be, I told Cale one evening. I don't even know who that person was anymore. We were walking through the gardens, as we'd taken to doing whenever he visited. The moon was full and bright, casting silver shadows across the path. Who are you now? Kale asked gently. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm the person I always was, I think. The person I was too scared to be. I'm still figuring out who that is. But I'm not scared anymore. Good, he said, squeezing my hand. You shouldn't be scared. You're beautiful, Aurora. Inside and out. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. Thank you. For seeing me. For accepting me. For loving me. He stopped walking and turned to face me. I love you because of who you are. Not in spite of it. Everything you've been through, everything you've overcome, it's made you who you are. And I wouldn't change a single thing. I didn't know what to say. So I kissed him. But happiness, I was learning, was never simple. The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a letter. Kale arrived at the castle one afternoon, his face pale and drawn. I need to talk to you, he said, taking my hands in his. It's about the prophecy. About the Shadow King. My heart sank. What about it? He took a deep breath. My father's spies have reported movement in the north. The Shadow King's forces are gathering. They're planning an invasion. I felt the blood drain from my face. When? Within the month. He squeezed my hands. Aurora, I need to tell you. Something. Something I should have told you before. What is it? I asked, dreading the answer. The prophecy says that the Savior must make a sacrifice. Something precious. Something that ties them to their old life. I stared at him, my mind reeling. You're saying I have to give up my memories of my other life? The only thing that makes me who I am? He nodded, his eyes filled with pain. I'm sorry. I didn't want to tell you, but you needed to know. I pulled away from him, my heart pounding. I can't give that up. It's all I have left of. I stopped, not knowing how to finish the sentence. I know. Kale reached out and took my hands again. But Aurora, if we don't stop the Shadow King, everything will be lost. The kingdom, the people, everything we've built. You're the only one who can save us. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream and cry and demand a different way. But deep down, I knew he was right. This was my responsibility. My burden. Give me time, I said finally. I need to think. He nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. Take all the time you need. But Aurora, we don't have much time. The weeks before the battle were the hardest of my life. I trained with the castle guards, learning to defend myself. I studied the ancient texts, memorizing the rituals that would reinforce the veil. And I spent long hours with Cordelia, savoring every moment we had together. But the thought of losing my memories haunted me. Who would I be without them? The person from my old life, the one who was trapped and scared? Or the woman I'd become? The princess who is finally free? I don't know who I am anymore. I confessed to Cordelia one evening. I don't know if I'm the person who dreamed of being a princess, or the princess who's living the dream. Cordelia was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took my hand. You're both, she said. And neither. You're something new. Something that didn't exist before. I stared at her, my mind spinning. What do you mean? I mean that you're not the same person who woke up in this castle, she said gently. You've changed. Grown. Become something more. And that's okay. It's okay to be different. It's okay to be uncertain. What matters is that you're here and you're fighting. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. She was right. I wasn't the same person. And that was okay. The night before the battle, I stood in front of my mirror. The woman staring back at me was the same one I'd seen in the first week. Beautiful, confident, strong. But she was different now. There was a new light in her eyes. A new determination. I reached up to touch my reflection, and for a moment, I felt like I was touching the woman I used to draw. The woman I'd poured my heart into for years. The woman who'd saved me. Thank you, I whispered, for bringing me here. For giving me a chance to be the person I always wanted to be. The reflection smiled, and I felt a warmth spread through my chest. This was me. This was really me. And I was ready to fight for myself. The battle came sooner than expected. I stood on the castle walls, watching the army approach. Thousands of soldiers, their armor gleaming in the pale morning light. At their head, a figure in black, the Shadow King himself. "Are you ready?" Kale asked, his voice steady beside me. I nodded, my heart pounding. "I'm ready." I'd made my decision. I would give up my memories. I would sacrifice everything I'd ever known to save this world. Because this world was my home now. These people were my family, and I would do anything to protect them. "Remember," Kale said, pressing his hand to my cheek. "No matter what happens, I love you." I smiled, tears streaming down my face. "I love you too." Then I stepped forward, the medallion of Eldoria warm in my hand. The ritual began. Words of power fell from my lips, words I'd memorized from the ancient texts. The veil shimmered before me, thin and fragile, and I felt my memories begin to slip away. My old life, my old body, my old fears, all of it slipping away like water through my fingers. But as they faded, I felt something new take their place. Strength, confidence, love. I was losing myself, but I was also finding myself. The veil shimmered and grew, repairing itself before my eyes. The Shadow King's army faltered, their power draining away. And I stood there, at the center of it all, watching my old life disappear. When it was over, I collapsed. Kale caught me, his arms strong and steady. "Aurora," he breathed. "Are you okay?" I looked up at him, and for a moment, I didn't know who I was. The memories were gone. The person from my old life was gone. But I was still here. I was still me. "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. "I'm more than fine. I'm home." The weeks after the battle were a time of healing and rebuilding. The Shadow King was defeated, his armies scattered. The kingdom was safe. And I was free. Free to be the woman I'd become. Free to love the person I was. Free to embrace the life I'd always dreamed of. Kale proposed to me in the gardens, under the same silver moon where we'd first kissed. "I love you," he said, dropping to one knee. "Not the princess you were supposed to be. Not the savior of the prophecy. Just you. The woman I fell in love with." I laughed, tears streaming down my face. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." He stood up and kissed me, and in that moment, everything was perfect. But the most perfect thing of all was this. I'd finally become the woman I'd always imagined. And I loved her. I loved her with all my heart. Years later, I stood in front of my vanity, staring at my reflection. I was older now, wiser, the mother of 2 beautiful children, the wife of a loving husband, the queen of a thriving kingdom. But the woman in the mirror was still the same amber eyes, the same honey gold hair, the same quiet smile. I reached up to touch my face, and the reflection did the same. "I love you," I whispered. "I love the woman you've become." And I meant it, because I'd finally become the woman I used to draw in my notebook. The woman who was beautiful, the woman who was confident, the woman who was worthy of love. And I fell in love with her, with myself, with the woman I'd always been, hidden beneath layers of fear and doubt. My transition had changed everything. Not just my appearance, but my soul, my heart, my very understanding of who I was. I was the princess I'd always dreamed of being. I was the woman I always imagined. And I was finally, truly, completely happy. #epilogue. The dream come true. The last page of my sketchbook was blank. I'd filled every other page with drawings of castles and gardens, of families and friends, of the life I'd always dreamed of. But this last page was empty, waiting for something new. I picked up my pencil and began to draw. I drew myself, the woman I'd become. Not the princess in the castle, not the queen on the throne. Just me, the woman who'd finally found the courage to be herself. I drew her smiling. I drew her laughing. I drew her living the life she'd always imagined. When I was finished, I set down my pencil and looked at the drawing. It was simple, really. Just a woman with amber eyes and honey gold hair, a woman who looked like she'd finally found her place in the world. I smiled, feeling tears pricking at my eyes. This was my story, my dream come true, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.